continue, please join me in welcoming our guests. To start with, I would like to invite our facilitator of this discussion, Mr. Arun Nathan. Arun is the partner at Sattva Consulting. He serves as the primary advisor for engagement with the non-profit ecosystem, leading the alignment of strategy with the leadership and board. He's also an executive coach and an expert in fundraising and strategy development. Arun? Sorry. Welcome, Arun. Please have. Next, we have Mr. MP Vasimalai. He is the founder and executive director of DHAN Foundation. DHAN's initiatives, such as community-led water conservation, agricultural development, and community banking for women empowerment, have really proven effective in poverty reduction. Under his leadership, DHAN has currently impacted 4.81 million families across 14 Indian states. Good morning, sir. Please have a seat. Next, we have Ms. Sheela Patel, who is the founder director of Society for Promotion of Area Resource Centers. We know it as SPARC, which is an NGO that has been working on issues faced by the urban poor across 70 Indian cities. She's also a trustee with Axis Bank Foundation. Ms. Patel continues to serve on multiple NGO boards, advocating for inclusive urban development and climate resilience. She is on her way and she'll be joining us very shortly in this conversation. Next, we have Mr. Soumitra Pandey, who is the partner at India Impact Sherpas. And Soumitra has over 31 years of experience in strategy and operations, consulting across social and business sectors. He was a partner at Accenture and Ernst & Young, and then helped actually also set up SPARC in India. His work spans across multiple sectors, which are rural livelihoods, education, policy development, and social justice. Welcome. And next we have Dhruvi Shah, who is the executive trustee and CEO of Axis Bank Foundation, which as a foundation, she leads the efforts to support livelihood promotion of rural communities across India. And here we are today for this wonderful conversation. So over to you, panelists.
Super, thank you very much, and a very good morning to all of you. I think we started off the day with a really good conversation here. And it was just brilliant to hear Vijay talk about some of the changes that are happening in the ecosystem and how the bank is responding to it. I've heard about conversations around innovation. Hearing about innovation in the fraudster community seems to be like an interesting piece. The regulatory environment that Vijay was also talking about seemed to set the stage for how, as a corporate, we've kind of also seen change here. I think before we get on to the panel, there are a couple of things that really stood out for me. The one, it's a star-studded panel, so it's my privilege to be facilitating this. The second thing that I can't help notice is the fact that there's almost like a galaxy of practitioners and leaders out there. So it almost seems like a great community of practice. I think the issue relating to navigating transitions and navigating change seems to be a very pertinent one, which is number one. And the second, also this objective of we really coming together as a group of leaders and practitioners to reflect, pause and learn seems to be a really nice way to construct this particular event. This also kind of comes from this core belief that all of us are leaders, but all of us are also work in progress as we are really kind of taking this forward. We've all been part of a lot of panels. In many of the panels, VC panels happen to us. There are few panelists who kind of come and speak and then leave. We wanted to try and do a bit of an experimentation with this conversation here. We wanted to see whether we could make it more conversational and in fact start with us overall. And we said since there was a lot of conversation around technology, we said we'll use some little bit of a technology to start, right? And so what we have currently done is, I know that there is a WhatsApp group that's created. And we said we'll start with a small poll before we really get into our panel here. So I think there is a group that we have, and there are 3 questions that are coming your way. So if you can access your phones and have a look at it, you have a question number 1, which is kind of coming here. And this is a moment of reflection for you to kind of really look back at the past year and see. As a leader, have you experienced transition or change in the past year? Do think about it. If you have, then you can say yes. Otherwise, no. If you're confused, then you can write don't know. That's fine. That's very interesting. I think it'll kind of also come up on the screens on both the sides. And I can see on my phone too. We almost have 61 going up to 63 and 64. This looks like stock exchange. It's 66. I think we are crossing 70 of all of us agreeing that each one of us seem to be experiencing change. We've crossed 80. This is fantastic. I think then what we are also saying is this conversation is not limited to, not a single no. Yeah, the don't know also has just changed. There was one don't know, which I think has now moved to yes. All right. Super. I think this is fantastic. I think this also goes to prove the point that the theme that you've selected is a really important one, because it's not only a matter of conversation, but it also touches our lives, right? Which then takes us to question number 2, right? And we'll just post the question number 2 here. I know that there is a sense of anticipation of what question number 2 is. So as we wait and as they are kind of loading on the question number 2 is, if you've experienced change, in what area have you experienced change? And it will just come up in a second. This is the lag in systems thinking. So I wonder that the system is thinking. Super. So you now find the question right up. I think we can load the question number 3 also in the meanwhile. As you see this question, it is about the area where you're dealing with the biggest transition. And again, please do reflect on your own experience and see where are you finding it the most. Yeah, so I think by design we wanted to kind of limit it to one, to see if there is a dominant transition or an area there. But it's really nice to and very, very interesting to see, right? I think technology leads, and it's such a pertinent topic as I can see. Seems that funding is another big area, government partnership. Absolutely. Look at that. So this is really nice. Very interesting, right? So I think there are a couple of insights for me as I'm kind of really looking at this. One, it also seems to be the fact that there just seems to be so many things happening at the same time. It's not just restricted to one, which then leads us to question number 3, which is about the feeling, right? What was the dominant feeling associated with the change that you just talked about and that you just quoted? I think there is significant amount of motivation. There is some level of anxiety. There are a few surprises. There are a few disappointments. So just to also let you know, we'll not kind of go back and really look at who's responded what. That's fine. That's data privacy. So I think that's okay. Super. I think this is great. Yeah. So thank you so much for participating in here. Is it? Huh. Correct. This distinction between I am motivated, but I don't know whether my organization is really as motivated as well. Super. Okay. But very, very interesting, right? So one, there definitely seems to be a strong sense of change that is touching all our lives. Second, it just seems to be on multiple different areas. And 3, it also seems to impact not only our lives, but the lives of our team members here. And so one of the things that we will do as part of this particular conversation is really explore that banking on the expertise and the experience that we have here. Once Sheela joins, we'll also kind of, we'll also leverage on that. Okay, so let us then start. I know that we've got another, we've got another 50 minutes and so on. Towards the end, we'll also open up for conversations, viewpoints, questions and so on. I hope that's okay. Okay, so why don't we start, and I'll start with question number 1. You've just now seen 3 questions being asked. Do you have any opening remarks? Vasi, we'll start with you. We'll come to Dhruvi and then with Soumitra. I also wanted to share that on this panel, there is this interesting mix of the non-profit centric deep view. There is a funder centric view. There is a consulting view. So you've got a mix also here. So we'll start with Vasi. Do you have any quick thoughts about what you just have kind of seen in terms of the responses?
I think evolution is the DNA for all development sector. So nothing is fixed. It's not a blueprint. So you can't predict next 5 years, 10 years, then you'll be a god. So basically the change and how do you understand change and dealing the change is part of everyday life. And the institution has to go through the process of evolution and redefining and defining process is very, very, very important on many areas. The institutional innovation and the core is community. How you really bring a kind of freedom of choice to the community. Or you decide for the community or community is really involved in decision making. Second is very important area is the quality of life. In the quality of life, if you really understand the meaning as well as the identities and the lifestyle. So now we are environment friendly lifestyle. And also the third area is how do we get a personal responsibility for common properties management. But on the whole, it's all interdependence. We are not institution, individuals or culture, or have to be interdependent. We are a culture of belonging. So these are very, very important. Change is really the constant, and we need to deal with change.
I think that's a great place to start, change being constant. Dhruvi, do you?
So I'll probably draw to something I said in the morning is, why transition? Why did we think of talking about it? One, we acknowledge that we all transit, change, pivot on a daily basis based on the situation we are in, and the situations are very dynamic on a daily basis, right? Whether daily basis usually operational, and even strategic when we have to either look at funding or look at what the environment requires us to do. But it's important to talk about it and acknowledge its importance in everyday life and how we shape up the future, right? So it's not that it's out of the blue that we will now have to navigate. It is about navigating better, seeking out help, sharing knowledge, sharing experiences, and that's what we want to do today, is acknowledge that we are all going through this and how do we do this better, and like that says, together we are stronger. So how do we all do this better? So that's the context.
Wonderful. So change being constant, interdependencies being the way all of us kind of relate to each other, and starting with the first step of acknowledging, I think is great. Soumitra, any opening thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I want to thank Dhruvi for inviting me here. Just a sense of deja vu around COVID, Axis Bank, got Shashank and me to work with all their partners to do the adaptive planning in terms of how do you deal with COVID, right? And that was a huge transition, unforeseen. So good to be here. I think when I looked at the poll results, two things stood out. One, just this sense of happiness that folks and leaders who are in the business of societal change are motivated by transitions, right? Because if you want to bring about societal change, you will change yourself in the process of doing so, right? I mean, the motivation came as is the biggest sentiment, and I think that's a great place to be in. So very happy for that. The other thing was also shows what I evolved said this group of people are, that on the axis of change, the two that stood out, one was external, right, which is technology funding, right. The other was internal, people. Right. So I think just this recognition that this transition is not that something is, brought upon us by external factors. Yes, it is. But internally also we are growing, changing, and we need to kind of, recognize that and adapt to that and work towards that. So those are the two things that stood out most.
Wonderful. I think that's great to go on to the feeling and really be able to kind of address this. It's very interesting. As part of the work that we do. We also work with a lot of non-profits and also leaders. And change is an element that we also kind of see. We also see two things. One is the fact that it kind of happens. The second is there is also a feeling of wanting to be kind of saying that it is okay, I can manage, and so on. Whereas there is a lot of vulnerability which is also attached to it, because everything is a new thing that kind of comes our way and so on and so forth. So, which was a very interesting thing as part of the work. I also want to kind of explore in this conversation to see, is it all motivation? Is it all kind of getting there? Or is it the socially desirable way to kind of show up? Are there more elements to change that kind of comes along this conversation? I'd love to kind of explore that. And to kind of start off on that basis, I want to kind of come back to Vasi. I think, Vasi, you talked about change being constant. You've been an institution builder. You've seen organizations done definitely much more deeper, but you've also seen many other organizations and so on. From that standpoint, how did you manage change? What worked for you?
I think many of us, all of us here, handling change. In the non-collective, we have a proactive process of continuous future search. And so we are in the 6th strategic plan. Every 5 years, it's not a boardroom discussion. It starts from the family, group, federations. So everyone talks about 5 years. And together, it's not that somebody is a top-down, or it has to be really evolved from the bottom up. I think it has to be a proactive, continuous process. If that is not proactively seen, then you will get a lot of surprises. And you may really not able to handle it, and even the growth and other things. The proactive, continuous future search is very, very important. During that process, something you keep, something you drop, something you create. I think you're not going to continue something which is not really working. So all this process will go. And also it is in the context of macro context, the changes around you, and also changes within all spheres of life. Digitization is taking a whole range of technological processes. So there are many fields it's happening. How entire system, the ecosystem, is conscious of it. It's not boardroom or governance only is really handling that.
Right. Can I just also build on this? You did mention that it is about the proactiveness. What worked for you to be able to create this proactiveness within an organization?
Basically, this is I would call it our DNA. It's our DNA where every year our policies are really getting reset and also contextualized. It is not the institutional once for all, no. So each context demands a different kind of change, rural, urban, coastal or tribal. So your contextualization really demands change. And also you are working only for initial 5 years. Change is completely different. You are working for 20 years, people institution. That change is completely different. So you deal with a multiple complex situation. It's not that single part of the process. So the proaction should be a part of a professional as well as the community. It has to be integral part.
Dhruvi, do you also see this similarly from a funding standpoint?
If I look at our own transition, at a level we've remained constant in the context of funding rural livelihood. So we've remained a constant since 2010, and that was a decision, not an easy one to hold on to, but we were able to. But within that, I think we've pivoted, and there are partners who've been with us for many years now, and they have been witness to our change. Our board members have been, Sheela Patel is here. She's been there. And maybe she can answer how we've pivoted. We've pivoted to the context, we've pivoted to the organizations that we are supporting. So we were able to build layers within our program to be able to pivot. So at a distance, yes, we are the same. But within us, we've pivoted significantly. I'm not sure if it's visible or if it's not visible. So we started funding in a certain way to a certain set of geography. We pivoted to multiple geographies, multiple kind of organization and multiple things. But it's this combination that has worked really well of being a constant in a space which holds you in the center, which gives the strength to pivot in other parts of what was required according to how we...
So this element of something which holds you and anchors you at the same time, your ability to kind of then move according to the context that Vasi was also mentioning. Sheela, when you are here, so I think not at all. In fact, we've just started off, we've been having the conversation. We did a poll to really kind of understand whether change is something that we all experience and transition is something that we all experience. We are currently talking about this issue of what has worked when you kind of deal with transition. We started with Vasi, we came to Dhruvi. You've seen both sides. You've been on the non-profit side, now your involvement in the foundation piece. When you look at change and transition and leaders managing it, what has worked for you? For you as a representative of the organization and also.
So first of all, I have the privilege of being in this foundation from its inception, working with several leaders, of which Dhruvi is the most recent, with different heads of the bank, and a bank that has made history, because I want to say that the Axis Bank Foundation was set up long before the CSR law came in, and I think, if I can have the right to say so, it actually created the basis for the banks to take this up. because Dr. Nayak created this foundation saying 1% of the bank's profits before tax would come to the foundation. In the beginning, everybody who is in the bank and associated with this foundation should be very proud of this milestone. The second important milestone was the composition of this board, the first board. There was Arun Maira, there was myself, and Anu Aga. We were completely three different types of people, different experiences, but all with a deep commitment to the aspect of social responsibility that private sector institutions should have with the profits that they produce, that must go towards whatever vision they may have or create. And we had an amazing parallel number of people who were senior bankers from the bank with whom we produced strategies and reviews. And if you go through the history, every head of Axis Bank gave passionate and clear directions, and each direction was different. And all of us produced it out of consensus. It wasn't just their fiat, but it was their vision, their rationale for doing that. And so in the beginning it was much more eclectic. There were a range of different possibilities that were looked at. Then it moved into rural livelihoods and a much sharper and deeper and long-term focus into this engagement, which we are following now. And every single chair of the board, every group of us who are there, we have long focused discussions. We give the staff a lot of headaches because the combination of senior bankers and all of us from different sectors make huge demands. But what I'm really proud about myself is what I have learned from this in the form of rigor, a deep admiration for the courage to stay focused as a foundation, not on cute, quick fixes, but on long-term transformation that not only impacts the communities that form the basis of the investment, but also all the organizations, all of you who are part of it, who we see as co-producers of this solution. As a board, we believe that's what you do. And so it would be interesting at some point for all of you to talk about that. Vasi is an old friend of mine. Dan's work is inspirational for all of us who are in this sector. I work in urban, he does mostly work in rural. But the amazing investment in long-term ambitions for scalability, of using your knowledge and experience not only to bring more value, resources, strategies, and linkages to the constituencies that you care about, but inspiring both the state and non-state actors to do new things. And I hope that Vasi will talk more about that. So for me, a person who has worked in urban all my life, I'm doing this for 50 years now, from the time I left college, this gives me a very wonderful mirror into rural engagement, because that's where the constituency that I work with come out of desperation and the inability of development to sustain them in rural areas.
Yeah, I think that's a great start. And I want to kind of build on this and go to Soumitra. Soumitra, you've kind of seen again multiple organizations. And in that context, have you seen patterns in things that really work when it comes to navigating transitions and change?
So, I mean, it's a privilege, right, to be in a position where you work with multiple leaders, many of them in this room and so many more outside, right? And And as I was reflecting on it, I'm quite surprised with my own set of observations, right? So if you look at transitions or change, right, I put them in three categories based on two things. One, how predictable it was, and how sudden was the impact, right? So let's look at bucket A, very reasonably predictable and gradual impact. So I would put things like the fact that many of NGOs here and partners have been working on the agriculture input side, and one knew that it will lead to surplus, and therefore the need to not then engage with markets. That could have been predicted. The fact that the young people that you will hire today will all be, if not millennials, mostly Gen Z, right? So we know that's going to happen. 10 years ago, if you knew the India story, if you had betted on the India story, you would know that CSR would become a very, very important element of the funding pool, right? So that's one. The other category is, you can predict it, but it happens suddenly. And there are very few, but there are things like changes in tax code or what's sometimes happening with FCI. The third category, which is very difficult to predict and very sudden. And the biggest example, and I don't want to keep reminding people of COVID, is COVID as an example, right? Now my going in hypothesis would have been that the category 1, which is highly predictable and gradual changes, the NGOs would transition, and this is not only people in this room, maybe they are actually more better funded and and have taken certain steps. But NGOs would have managed that transition much better than, say, category C. But all the partners, bar none, that I have worked with, they managed COVID very well. They managed a crisis very well, but are not doing so well on category 1. And my hypothesis on that is a couple of things. One, great work by Britspan and on pay what it takes, right? I mean, our institutions and organizations funded for that, and even greater work with likes of Dhruvi and Axis Bank Foundation, who are giving money for org building, right? So that is a limitation. And the other is mindset, and I'm sorry, if it offends, it is not to offend anyone, but like the Indian NGOs have gone into what I think is the middle class, middle-aged Indian woman syndrome, which is where there's no information asymmetry. You know what's going to happen to your bodies, you're going to be hit with osteoporosis, you know everything. You have the wherewithal to deal with it. But you are so concerned about the well-being of everyone around you, but your own well-being, right? And I think that is a big issue which I see somewhere working on yourself as an institution. I don't know why people don't do it, but it just seems to be that you're always in this sacrifice mode कि भाई हमको दूसरे के लिए काम करना है, अपने लिए नहीं काम करना, and which actually reminds me of how my, and I'm not proud of it, but how my mother dealt with her own, own self, right? So that's why, I'm sorry if it offends any woman, but like that's how, I feel about it.
Yeah, that's a very interesting observation of one being able to kind of look at the different changes in terms of different buckets, and second, generally also reading the response. I wanted to just generally check, Vasi, do you have a response? Do you also see it this way? And Sheela Ben, do you see it this way?
Yeah, I have to really share two things. In 90s, even 2000, we used to work with like Ford Foundation, Axfam Novib, Tata Trust. They give 20 years institutional funding and program funding. Now the order of the day is a project funding. We were really used to flexible, a lot of openness in those periods. I'm talking about 2010. After that, the change is phenomenal. And the foreign funds also comes down. And also CSR came in with all 1 year, 2 year projectized, and the flexibility is really moved on. This one change is greatly affected all of us. I think this needs some common understanding. How do we really bring back flexibility to the community? I think otherwise you are not a God to predict everything in the kind of process. The second thing, you take DHAN. Members saving itself 1,500 crores. And bank linkage is 1,000 crores. So this institution handling 3,000 crores with 100 crores CSR and other funds. So how do you look at it? You are not looking at it in isolation of a project. If you really look at your project as an isolation, 10 crore, 15 crore, you have to see the wholeness. How this institution, where I think you would like to write, okay, I'm interested in this, so let us start because we want. So there is a need to understand the shared purpose or wholeness and really try to understand each one. But there are limitations, yes. But with the limitation, we can say that this is what we really do. I find Axis Bank Foundation, 2011 onwards, we are working on together. I think I would like to give a credit to Babu Joseph. So he came first time to us. So we are interested in tank program. I said, why? So we are working so many. No. Then he asked us to really work out a project. So we gave small project for, no, I want 5 years. This demand is coming from fraction. That is a fraction. Then I said, okay. Then we came with around 15 crores. Then that is only a trigger fund. So what is a multiplier? So multiplier comes from bank linkage, multiplier comes from MGNRA all together. So the 15 crore become 60 crore. The kind of openness, the dialogue. I think the dialogue between, I think it's all same purpose, shared purpose on which. I think that openness is very important, and they should look at the total institutional perspective, and each one has their uniqueness. Let 1,000 flowers blossom. It's not a single organization. Many of them have their own thing. I think let us understand that. And also this change. Change is also affecting, I think almost now smaller organization is struggling. It's a struggling and also gone. I think we need to look at the scenery of the development sector and which are innovation, where the new innovation is coming, the scale-up innovation is coming, like a startup, incubation. Everything is relevant for development sector also. It's not only relevant for commercial sector. I think the way we are really evolving as a kind of like a 21st century, new way of looking at it. GDP is not important. Your well-being of people, well-being of a planet, environment, everything is related. So the way we look at things are really holistic. I think the changes are very far-reaching.
Sheela Ben, you have it.
I think that I just want to take over from where you're saying. So first of all, I want to challenge you.
That's the kind of conversation.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
You can't have me and not have challenging. So the first thing I want to say is this bichara me syndrome is pushed on us by the state and by donors. On one hand, you want us to produce numbers, to produce evidence, to do everything yesterday, no failures, no acknowledgement of the way in which the politics of the locality, the national and the global impacts us, because we have projectized everything. And I see this discussion even in our board, where as a bank, digitalization and quantification has made everything very quick to assess. Yet how do you assess development of what we are so proud about, that we are working with the most difficult districts in the most difficult states. We want to be there long term and we want impact yesterday. We are so concerned about what is the ratio of the investment that the organization makes on itself and on its work. And this syndrome of being your mother is done by you, by us, by not being clear of the implications and the range of different requirements of organizations based on where they are. So when Vasi works in 6 states, the institutional arrangement doesn't mimic each other. They are different. All of us who work in India, I can tell you as a person who now works internationally, the advantage we Indians have is every state is like 5 countries somewhere else. So our amazing capacity to deal with these huge differences just doesn't get accommodated in your efficiency model, which banks have. And the foundation struggles. So as your intermediary, I want to tell you that we as the board give the foundation a very hard time, because we are also a composition of a range of different people who have huge expectations, but it accompanies with efficiency and impact. And we are living in a country in which there is no clear pathway to that transformation. The complications are now further impacted by climate, about which we have very little information. Our state and national institutions have great discussions internationally, but have very little inputs into the action and activities. So when I remember I was on the board, Vasi, when you did that amazing project of linking all the water bodies. This was a seminal project which came up long before we acknowledged that the planet is water scarce. But we have not been able to get 15 other organizations to do that. And lakes and water bodies all over India are being destroyed by our real estate departments of all our business organizations. We are not making those connections. The bank is not making the connections. Philanthropy is not making those connections. We are separate. But we want efficiency, we want scale. So I'm just saying there are so many contradictions, and these contradictions are going to increase because our politicians and our industry is very good at rhetoric, but not so good at action. So it doesn't come together parallelly. So a big challenge that I think we have to take together, all of you as people who are in some ways part of the Axis Bank Foundation family, the foundation and those of us who are on the board with some independent and some bank staff, we have to embrace this new reality, and we all have to find out new metrics to deal with it. So best of luck, my dear.
So just quickly, I mean, I agree with you that there's no debate. All I'm saying is, I'm not saying it's the making of the NGOs alone, but that's the mindset. And 2 quick data points, right? It's still a minority. I've spoken to many organizations who've got this Scott McKinsey grant, which is completely flexible. Not too many people have got it. Or even the grants from Grow funds, right? What has happened is, over time, your mindset is such that investing in yourself as an organization somehow doesn't take high priority. So I'm not blaming the NGOs for that, but I was just describing the state of the play.
You are not doing something properly, because you are part of the system. And
just
every CEO who gets a good salary has to be very apologetic. Giving staff benefits, are you giving the same benefits to your community? At once we all become very... But we are now dealing with Gen X. You ask all these people what a difficulty it is to recruit new, young, smart kids.
Yeah. So just
Everybody give him a clap.
So that's what I'm saying, like that's the societal construct, but that's the phenomenon.
Just not clapping.
sorry, so just building on it.
don't you see all of you together as a single entity? Why do you really have to these divisions? Because we are all for the same purpose. So, but it's easier said than done. Easier said than done. And I think the kind of people here, it's a handpicked, the kind of 1,000 flowers blossom. Excellent NGOs are here. And you are really, as a Axis Bank Foundation, need not spend time for rejecting or other things. It's a great gamut of people are there. I think the joint work, that's what currently we are also doing. I think one time the board came to field and also spent time. It is unheard of any other institution. I think they are really creating. I used to admire Ford Foundation those days because they're kind of flexible. I think now the present day Ford Foundation is like Axis Bank Foundation. They give a flexibility and the kind of freedom, and at the same time, the projectization needs relooking at it. So, and also the long-term perspective is also coming up. I think I find, I think these are the kind of people going to make together big change. That's what I think.
So just building on the point, right? So, as you can see, very interesting conversation, right? So, fairly different views, and I really appreciate the panel for bringing out this, because otherwise you can have one thought and be an echo chamber, and but the diversity of the views is essentially what kind of brings out the layers and the nuances. But I just want to quickly stop here. I know that we've got another 20 minutes. Just want to check any thoughts, any questions. I've got a couple of questions that we can kind of wait for towards the end, but we can start. Yes, please. What we'll also do is, in the interest of time, we'll take a few thoughts, then come back and go ahead and so on.
Libby Johnson from Gram Vikas in Odisha. 3 points in the form of questions, but they may not sound like questions. I think when we talk about institutions that work directly at the community level, where we do service delivery, contracting jobs, we forget that our existence comes from the trusteeship that communities bestow on us. We are not there because we think we have the ability to solve. I mean, the first generation, 2 of them are sitting there, Joe, people like Joe and all, came because they said they want to explore and do something. From that to organizations becoming, purveyors of solutions, searching for problems like what was said last night also. I think we are forgetting the trusteeship as the basis of our intermediation capabilities and the need for us to be there. In many states, panchayats are being challenged, NGOs are being challenged by panchayats, and that's where this issue comes up. So that's the first point that I wanted to make. The second point was, I understand the point which Soumitra is saying about, the suffering mother syndrome in NGOs. But let's not for a moment forget that the suffering mother has agency. She is choosing to be a suffering mother in certain contexts, not always. I also believe that most of us as organizations who are takers of, everything that happens around us are not necessarily always suffering. We may also have a tactical view of that. We may even have a strategic position on that. There is too much of paternalism in it when we are being looked at. And that starts from the state, donors, the intermediaries, 2 of you are sitting there. That is something that we need to warn about. And final point about change. I think, why are we not worried about change that happens at the community level? Policy changes, donor changes, flows with the stream. But how people are reacting to changes around them is what scares me the most today. Thank you.
Wonderful. Any other quick thoughts, questions? We've got a hand up.
So, I'm Dr. Rajin Singh Gautam from Institute of Livelihood Research and Training. So we are largely in research, and we are associated with Axis Bank Foundation, and therefore we were part of various like baseline studies and impact studies, and then we got opportunity to visit various areas and have seen the programs. So my own observation is that when we see the rural livelihoods, so broadly it's a form-based and non-form-based. And if you see the farm sector, it is totally in crisis today because the land holding we can see. Most of the farmers are marginal farmer, and you see the investment capacities and then the climate risk. So I got opportunity to visit Ladakh area for study of Himothan, which is supported by Axis Bank Foundation, and I have observed in village that there is no youth left in the village. It's only women who are taking care of rural livelihood system. Why youth are not there? Because they are not able to manage their livelihood from the existing resources available in the village. The second dimension is because of the penetration of digital technologies. The aspirations are so high and there is no sense of dignity in pursuing the traditional livelihoods. So this is the big challenge. So nobody really want to, and even the farm sector is again in crisis because of nowadays the women are getting money in their accounts. So you go, I myself is a farmer, now you will not get a labor to do work in your farm. So farmer is further in crisis because the input cost is high and the labor cost is even, and there is no certainty about the return. And you have made all the investment upfront. So you are not sure whether you will get income from your agriculture. The second dimension relating to the non-farm sector. See the rural non-farm sector in India. There is no manufacturing, rural manufacturing base. Whatever enterprises that we observe in the village are like they are providing some services like the atta chakki or the kirana shop or some tailors. Okay. Now the thing is that, and the big challenge before the development sector, how to revive the rural economy, how to retain people in the rural area, and do we really have that capabilities and capital base with the rural development sector organizations? That is a big question.
I think some of that we are also planning to kind of build.
Point I like to make is everybody here works in the rural landscape. So it is what you stated is important, but it's the obvious for everybody here. 90% of people work in the land, water, farm, non-farm. So I think it'll be important through the day also not to state the obvious, but find solution, and that's the purpose. It's not about stating the obvious. I mean, we know youth are not there. We know women are taking on the larger burden. We know migration is happening. Honestly, let's focus on what we've done in some parts which has worked, which has not worked, share with each other and learn. So I think it'll be important to keep this thought in mind while we have all the other conversation, not stating the obvious, so that we are able to find solutions and learn from each other, and that's honestly the purpose of the conversations today. Sorry, but I had to say that.
Super. We've got one last question, then we'll come back to the panel.
I'm Deepesh from Enable India. I think the one thought which comes up for all of us is, as we say, language is culture. Language builds culture. And I think it is very important to look at what are we looking at and what are we talking, right? So one of the ideas basically which comes up is, which I've been thinking of is, can we change the development sector to enablement sector? And I think if you look at development, you're already thinking development is, all of us think we are developing something or somebody, something, even funder, we are enabling, we are development and all. I think if you look at this saying that we are enabling things to happen, enabling builds the equality. And that's where I think I like the name Sherpa. So Sherpa is what? I have traversed the path, so I'm going to take you along. Mentor, coach is always, I am bigger than you. I am a mentor, I am a coach. And Sherpa is always, I have taken this path, come, I'll carry your burden with you. So these kind of things are going to be very important to look at. How do we enable things rather than, say, development sector? So I think one of the ideas can be looking at, can we have collective projects? Like I think Vasi sir has spoke about lakes and all that. Can we do a collective thing? So one example I can give you, I was talking to Harish yesterday about Selco. So we are looking at some girls' toilets which are in the schools, which are going to be accessible toilets. And we were saying, can I create accessible toilets with solar panels, having a kirana shop next to it, run by a person with disability? Now it's a complete ecosystem. I think if you look at it, it's a win-win for all. So I think if we can kind of start talking about saying that can we leverage from each other's strengths and see how we can really solve a problem, not one area. And which is what I think we are talking about, silos and enablement, not development. Otherwise we are developing. So that was my point.
What you are talking about is, we are all enablers. From civil society, NGOs are enablers. We are not doer. The community is the doer. I think the clarity is very, very important. There are three systems in which we are handling. One is the demand system, community, the supply system, many of the supply system, including government and other things. Then the enabling system is the CSOs. Do we really, because we are dealing with all the three systems. Otherwise, we may not be able to have a transition management and other things. So we can't isolationally take, we are an enabler of whom? Enabler of government, enabler of many, these all three systems we need to. So we need to map out how our work is dealing with these three systems as an enabler, not a kind of questioning ourselves. So to make them themselves feel proud. I think all of our work, the collective success is very important. It is not DHAN success. It is the banker's success. It is the insurance success. So who are the collective? Do we really celebrate the collective success? That is the purpose. And when we really manage all of us together, not an isolation as an institution, so let us celebrate together as a success, not as an institutional success. Then we are really delimiting ourselves. Thank you.
Sorry, just a quick point. I know we've got another 7 minutes to cover. And I just wanted to touch upon one last interesting, controversial question. Right? And I want to start with Dhruvi, you here. In a lot of conversations, we also come across this piece of saying, you should change. You should change. If you are a funder, you should change. If you are a government, you should change. If you are the state, you should change. Right? Do you see that coming up as a hindrance for organizations when they deal with change?
Yeah, and it's that sentence that made a lot of difference in my life, because I was always about, when I joined in very early, very new, and when you see so many problems you've not dealt with, you suddenly start want to solve it, and that's what I did. And I was getting very frustrated. My boss, Soumitra, sir would know, she called me one day saying, what's happening to you? Yogesh knows, sir. And I said, nobody's listening to me, I have such good ideas. And I was about 30 then. And she said, be the change you want to see. And she said, okay, go now. And that's all she said. She didn't solve my problem. She didn't tell others to do what I was telling them to do, and all of that happened. But I think that started, and I still have it in front of me. Srijan has given a nice frame. It's right there. So it is, if you, yes, others also have to change. But if you change and others also start responding to change, there is more symbiotic change around. It's very easy to ask others to change. But if you don't change, or don't have the ability to change, it doesn't really solve. It just makes me feel good. I have told everybody what needs to happen. And sometimes it's frustrating because the solutions are obvious and we don't do it. But I think the change starts from within us. So that's what I would like to say.
Soumitra, do you have a view?
No, of course, I mean, the change starts with us, right? The question is, and again, I'll come to Libby and go back to my, framework, right? I mean, the transitions that you can foresee and are gradual, right? There are multiple tools, right? All consulting firms have your risk management, scenario planning, and so on and so forth. That's certainly important. I think changes that are dramatic, unforeseeable, to manage that, in my mind, the currency is trust. First, trust in yourself and your leadership. Trust amongst and with your team, trust in your funders and with your funders, right? And the second thing is vulnerability, right? I will never be on top of everything, boss. Something will not work, right? And the ability to acknowledge and accept. And that's why I say that is deeper work. It may not require huge amount of dollars, capital, but it requires space and time as an organization to do that. Personally, for me, it came about in 2 rounds of Vipassana, right? Which is, and I'm not suggesting everyone should do Vipassana, but I'm saying you can't bring about change and manage change unless until you've worked upon yourself as an individual and collectively as an organization.
Should have been quick concluding remarks from your side.
I have a recommendation. Sitting here in this audience are some of the most spectacular partnerships that Axis Bank has, doing amazing things at amazing scales, depth, and in terms of time. I'm going to recommend to Avni, to Dhruvi, to bring to the board a special fund for new partnerships between yourselves. Because we all get excited at whatever we do and the scale at which we work. But I've just joined a crazy organization called Catalyst now. I sit on their board. And they have 4,800 organizations who are all over the world. And I got dragged into working with them because I now work very deeply on the issues of urbanization and climate. But I'm part of a larger network that's working on issues of climate. And we're looking at how a group of us can transition into helping everybody to look at climate as an integral part, consciously, not accidentally. So I'd like Dhruvi for you to give this group of people an opportunity to recommend to the bank foundation some ways to embed scale at a new level. Because what you can learn from your peers is fast track. You learn a lot when you share. You get stronger, your egos get dampened because you look at what else people can do. But more importantly, we are operating in a subcontinent in which there are so many unique geographies but have lots of commonalities that we can learn from each other. So rather than just saying that nahi abhi badhao, scale karo or districts le lo, look at what we can learn from each other. I also want to say that I always talk about Axis Bank Foundation and its CSR as a trendsetter. Because having the courage to stay with organizations, give you substantial resources of money for substantial periods of time is not something that is common in the CSR world. And I think that we have to stay on top of it by doing new and more innovative stuff. So I want this to happen.
Wonderful. I think that's a great place to end this plenary. But I just also wanted to kind of share that I think this is all a dialogue that kind of continues through our journeys and so on. Today you have a full day. I think there are multiple sessions, and in each one of these sessions we are going to deal with these elements of new things coming up, learning from each other and so on and so forth. So if there are some learnings that kind of come up, it is very clearly the fact that it is constant. There is a lot that's happening. It's the way we are also kind of responding to it. So wishing you all great luck to let go and let come as the day proceeds. But thank you so much for all your thoughts and views. It's been fantastic facilitating this panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Could we have a big round of applause for them. It was a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for all your insights.